You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. And of course, like in between all of our Star Wars reviews, doing the whole What is Star Wars thing, where we've been reviewing each film and talking about what makes Star Wars. And then, of course, knee deep in our Mandalorian reviews on Fridays. We just really haven't had a chance to talk about any Star Wars news or anything like that. And of course, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, Star Wars Celebration happened. And so we thought it would be a good idea to give our recap of some of the things that went on in the event, as well as maybe give a little bit of our thoughts. So, naturally, we couldn't go again this year. That just one day. I guess they're going to do the next one in Japan.
Japan, yep.
Yeah, 2025. Same thing, like April 13th through 18th, 18th through 20. I don't know. I sort of read the dates really quick, but now that would be cool because I've always wanted to go to Japan.
Me too.
You know, I don't know. Maybe we'll get lucky. Look, if you guys just hit that like button and subscribe button and, you know, more of you are there, maybe we'll be able to actually go do our show from Star Wars Celebration. But in the meantime, you know, it's just, I guess we're just forever doomed to give these little recaps, just like everybody else watching on YouTube from their house. So overall, from what you've been able to see, before we get into a lot of the things that were announced, what did you, I don't know, what were your overall thoughts on it?
I thought it was really cool. You know, we got some trailers, we got some things that were announced that we always kind of wonder if they were coming. More importantly, like what's the next Star Wars film? You know, that was like one of the big ones. So I was glad to hear that. So I'm really kind of excited. Things are rolling with the shows that we already know, like Ahsoka's already started, Acolyte, that's underway, Andor season 2. That's just to name a few things. So I'm really excited as to seeing what those bring.
Yeah, I would agree. I honestly think that this is probably the most exciting time that we've seen in Star Wars in a while. It's overwhelmingly positive, even though there are still some criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy, and believe me, they're warranted. It just seems like Star Wars is moving in a direction that's positive, that they've learned from some of their mistakes. Not all of them, as we're going to point out during this show. But, I don't know, it's true. A lot of the different things that we've seen over the course of Celebration, a lot of the goodwill, the return of Ahmed Best, there's just been a really nice vibe to Star Wars. And I think, look, you're always going to get all these haters and all the toxic fans and everybody going on YouTube talking about how Star Wars is done and it's over and all that. Look, I mean, I watch a lot of those shows, and they're not wrong in a lot of things that they say. A little bit harsh maybe, but they're not entirely wrong. But I do think that Star Wars is going in a positive direction. So we basically saw all of this stuff. We can go through a little bit of some of the things. The first thing, of course, was that Lucasfilm announced that there were going to be 3 new movies that are going to be released. You know, one of them is basically from James Mangold, who is going to be producing this almost biblical epic 10 Commandments style movie on the Dawn of the Jedi. So that, to me, was probably one of the most exciting things that came out of this thing.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and it's funny because they are kind of doing what I actually kind of hoped they, because a while back I mentioned that, you know, I would love for them to kind of talk about almost like where the Force began in a way, or
Mm-hmm.
to kind of encapsulate that in some sort of way, because it's like, we just kind of dropped into this world. If you really think about it, like when we started episode 4, it's in the middle of the Skywalker story, if you really look at it. And it's like, okay, we already got Obi-Wan. Luke is already of age. He's finding out about the Force, but we really don't know exactly, like, okay, how did the Jedi come to be? Who was the first person to discover the Force, or things like that? How did the whole Sith? I mean, we kind of know about the Sith faction, but we've never seen it, and we haven't seen the full story fleshed out, so to speak. So I think that's something that will be interesting. So this whole biblical Ten Commandments style of, what is it, the Dawn of the Force or something like that? I think that's
Dawn
the
of the
title.
Jedi.
Dawn of the Jedi. So
Yeah.
yes, so that's really going to be interesting. I'm really curious as to why they decided to go there and not do the High Republic, because that's been out. Because we always thought that they would do the High Republic, as a film, but they didn't, which might be a good move anyway, because that's
Yeah.
not completely fleshed out. So I can understand that. And
What kind
so
of?
if they're just starting fresh, well, I mean, they have it fleshed out in I guess somewhat of a comic book story thing, but there's so many sub quests that kind of go along with that, though. That's what I mean. Like, but
Well, even more in the comics, it's really the books. The books. I mean, there's a gang of them now. I'm way behind, honestly. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
there are just so many High Republic books that are out now that it's really tough to keep up, and they keep putting them out. So it's not an unwarranted question to figure out, hey, why not the High Republic? Why are we starting out with the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just always been really curious as to how the mythos began. I think that's where I want to go with it. So that's going to be really interesting for me.
Yeah. I mean, the Dawn of the Jedi book, or not book, movie, I think the reason why they're doing that is because, look, it basically goes to the beginning. I think that they want to possibly start out with what made the Jedi Jedi? How did they discover the Force? I think they want to actually put that somewhere in canon so they can then expand on it in further projects. That's my best guess. Although, I mean, honestly, who knows? Maybe it's because when James Mangold was offered the thing, it was like, well, you know what? I've always wanted to do one of these really epic scale movies like the Ten Commandments, like Cleopatra, like Ben-Hur, like all those kind of movies. Maybe that's just what made the most sense to him. Maybe he just figured that kind of lends itself to it, same as Benioff and Weiss wanted to do the Old Republic, because that sort of fit into their whole vibe.
Well, yeah, and we often, Eric, you often bring up the fact that you can put Star Wars in different genres.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what genre that would be, but you can definitely,
like
just even the vibe of
historical epic.
Okay, there you go.
Like those movies
nice
I
word
mentioned,
for it.
all of them are kind of
exactly. No, you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
How was the other one besides Better?
Ben-Hur.
Spartacus. Spartacus was the other
Okay.
one. Oh man, just like tons of movies like that. But then, of course, we also got the announcement of Dave Filoni's film. He's finally going to get to direct and make his own film. And, of course, that one, wisely, is going to more or less play in the playground of The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett. And it's promising, maybe not necessarily to be a finale, because somebody posed that to Filoni during this thing. And he was like, well, I don't know if I would really look at it as a finale so much. But it will play in that time period, and it will somewhat, I think, tie up the story arc set forth in that. Because he did mention that, there would be an Ahsoka season 2, but he wants to wait to see how season 1 is received. So that should be cool. I'm looking forward to that. I was really happy about that one.
Oh yeah, it's high time that Dave finally get his his
Well, and
full movie,
I
his
like
actual movie
I like what
credit.
he chose.
Okay.
I mean, because he could have gone anywhere really with it, you know, because he's told stories in different eras before. I mean, he could have gone in Rebels, he could have gone Clone Wars if he wanted. Um, although that would have been tough unless he told the story from another character's perspective. So this is probably the best choice for him.
And it's already successful. You know, that's the other thing too. It's this time period as far as the Mandalorian is already
Yeah.
kind of successful, so it makes sense.
Well, and it's almost like what they were going to do with 24. Remember how 24 was going to try to make movies in between seasons or something? Of course, that never actually came to pass, but it was like they're almost going to wrap up. I don't know if they did it like every third season or something like that, or if they tried to conclude it at the end of the season, it would almost be like, okay, it would either be the epilogue for that season or it would begin a story for a new season. So it's probably the way to go. Now, this guy's name, Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. All right. Emmy Award-winning director behind Ms. Marvel, Saving Face, and more. Is going to direct a movie based on the events after The Rise of Skywalker, and we're bringing back Rey and Daisy Ridley. Now, this one did not sit well with a lot of Star Wars fans.
Yeah. How did you feel about it?
You know, I'll be honest. Excitement is not a word I think I would use on this one. I mean, I'm not exactly like, see, for me, I don't hate the Rey character like a lot of people do, but I hate what's behind it. I hate the agendas and a lot of the things that are behind pushing this character. And you know, you get Kathleen Kennedy wearing shirts like the Force is female, and you know, I mean, just this whole, you know, we're trying to push this whole social agenda that just for the sake of doing it, that I don't really think is appropriate. I don't necessarily mind a female-led character. I mean, everybody jumps on that immediately, and everybody forgets that Ahsoka is one of the most beloved characters, that Princess Leia is one of the most beloved characters. You got Padme,
Sure.
you've got, I mean, there's just so many female characters in, I mean, even recently, like Mon Mothma, you know, you got, I mean, it's not
Asajj Ventress.
Asajj
you got so
Ventress.
many.
Yeah, that's not the problem. The problem is what's behind it and what they're trying to do. You know, I mean, let me guess. It's going to be a female that's going to be oppressed by a bunch of evil males. And, you know, I mean, it's just, this is starting not to sit well with me. But more importantly, even besides all that, on one hand, if you're looking at the sequel trilogy in the way that it was presented to us, such as it is, you almost don't have a choice. I mean, if you're going to do stories that take place after the Rise of Skywalker, if you include Jedi in any way, you're going to have to deal with Rey, because Rey's the one who pretty much inherited the whole thing from Luke and is responsible for starting it. And so, unfortunately, if you want to deal with it, I mean, unless you go, a lot of fans have suggested maybe going really far into the future with it. Like, past the point that maybe Rey established it or whatever, but now you're picking up maybe like, I mean, this movie is going to be 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker, but if you picked it up like 50 or 100 years after, I think that's really what fans wanted. Fans, I don't know. I don't think that they're really necessarily into this whole idea. And even though she did get somewhat of a warm reception, because I don't think people are taking it out on Daisy Ridley. I mean, you know, she's a good actress and she's just doing her job, you know. But I mean, I don't know. People really took to the internet and immediately expressed, putting it mildly, their dissatisfaction on this decision.
I'm with you. I don't mind the character of Rey. I think she's cool. In some ways, I feel like she's underdeveloped though, and I understand I get the fact that they're trying to almost make her the new Luke Skywalker, from her clothing to even her story of not knowing who her parents are and things of that nature. And then, of course, finding out that your your lineage is attached to the one most evil people in the galaxy. So you have that. But I still
I
feel like
understand.
her character,
I know.
I just feel like her character is still so underdeveloped, and it doesn't have as much, and it has nothing to do with her gender. It's just the writing of her story just doesn't have as much gravitas as what Luke did, and maybe it's because it's been done before. Like it's almost like a carbon copy of it. So it's like, okay, we've kind of seen this already. And I
What?
get, yes, there are. We always talk about familiar story tropes, and themes can be repeated and start. Like I'm with that. But to almost make a complete duplicate of that, it's kind of like, all right, and now she has to restart the Jedi Order because now she's young enough. Because we never got a chance to see that happen with Luke or with Mark Hamill because they waited too late to do that until he got past the age where he could really truly be the Luke Skywalker we read in the novels. That really would have explained and shown a lot of that. So it's not like, now, well, let's just have Ray do it now,
Well, and that's
which can be
true.
cool,
Sure.
possibly. But my thing is, I just feel like she as a character needs to be developed maybe a little bit more before that takes place.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that Rey's storyline felt rushed in the sequel trilogy, so maybe that's part of it. Because honestly,
Mm-hmm.
her character really, I mean, if you really, from an objective point of view, look, it's not like Luke's character was really all that developed in the original trilogy, as much as it is that, and it's similar to Rey in the sense that you had, in episode 4 and episode 7, you had our hero. In 4's case, it was Luke. In 7's case, it's Rey. Start their journey,
Mm-hmm.
find out about the Force, all that other stuff. And in episode 5 and 8, both the characters struggled with the dark side. Both characters were sort of facing their challenges, if you will. And then in episodes 6 and in episode 9, it was a conclusion. And I think the big problem is that we just had like 30 or 40 years to live with Luke Skywalker, where we haven't had that time with Rey. And there's been countless novels and comics and all kinds of stuff written about the character. So that's why I think sometimes it feels like Luke's character was more developed versus Rey, I'm talking about. Because we just had more time to live with the character. And that's why I
Possibility.
agree with where you're going, though, because I think what they need to do is something similar to what they did with Luke, right? You have Daisy Ridley. Okay, she's, I don't know, 22, 25, whatever. And she's completed her trilogy. Okay, now go write a bunch of material and everything and let us live with it for 10 years or something and then bring her back. Once we actually know more stuff. But I think the other problem, too, is that people just didn't, unlike the original trilogy, people really didn't respond too well.
Yeah. And I think, in some ways, I feel like I think the passing of Carrie Fisher really took a toll on that.
Yeah.
Because I think if Carrie Fisher would have been around, there would have been more development and growth and depth into both of those characters because she would have been, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
We
what you
really
mean.
didn't get the whole so Luke had Yoda in 5 and 6. But Rey, even though she had Luke spent 90% of the movie not wanting to train her. So it's just kind of like, all right, you really didn't get a lot of it didn't feel, maybe so I should say that. It didn't feel like, at least to me, that you got a lot of the wisdom that if you're gonna do a carbon copy of it, at least let the wisdom that Luke has accrued really shine through, almost like Yoda did.
Well, again,
You know, I mean, it's
they
like
did
that.
that though. Just
Well, like that
but
moment
they
where you
rushed
had.
it.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, okay. So I remember like the moment when, okay, the X-wing is sinking into the swamp, and Luke is just kind of despair. He's kind of discouraged, like, man, I'm never gonna get out of here. Blah blah blah. It seems hopeless, and then Luke. I mean, not Luke, but then Yoda actually, uses the Force, brings the X-wing out of the swamp, and then flies it across the swamp and places it on sure ground. And when Luke walks up, he's just like, he's touching it, and he's just like, you know, I don't believe this. And Yoda, that is why you failed. That right there was like a moment. The do or do not, there is no try. Those type of moments, like there weren't. So it's kind of like he was training Luke, but he was also training us as the audience too about a lot of things. And so that's what it felt like. And I felt like as an audience member, we didn't really get a whole lot of that. It seemed like more he was trying to explain, like, okay, the Jedi failed, and I failed, and okay.
Well, that's what made that part interesting, though. It was like an interesting dynamic, because if it had been something like that, then of course everybody would have been, okay, here it comes, the same old training montage, the same old this. I mean, that was one of the things, although I don't know if I mentioned it in our almost 4-hour review of The Last Jedi, but one of the things that I actually did enjoy about that was it was refreshing, because what it did, and in a way, I don't in any way, shape, or form think that Rian Johnson did this on purpose. But in a way, it speaks to the YouTube University generation, right? Where even we, if you want to learn something, you go on YouTube and learn it. A lot of times people aren't really learning necessarily that great from schools, and a lot of those are a mess now, and a lot of people just learn more stuff off of YouTube. And that's sort of what Rey had to do. You had this reluctant teacher that she had to practically beg to get him to train her, and then he finally does, and like you said, he kind of goes off on the get off my lawn phase about how the Jedi failed, and I failed, and I'm terrible, and all this. And so eventually, especially by episode 9, that was one thing that they established in the breakneck pace, and I'll probably mention this when we do the review. She's reading through the text and kind of learning it on her own, which I thought was kind of a nice sort of a thing. But, I mean, does it make for great cinema? Obviously not, because the sequel trilogy didn't do... Again, you and I talked about this a million times. They squandered a lot of really cool themes and moments that they came up with in the sequel trilogy, probably by accident, I might add. And they could have really done some cool stuff with it, but they didn't. So I don't know. I hope, and this is one of the things I can say overall about Celebration, I'm cautiously optimistic. They seem to have learned their lesson. Kathleen Kennedy ended up making another comment that said, now we're about quality over quantity and all this and everything. And, she's mentioned that they're way ahead on the movies. These things are not just in development. They're pretty far along, actually. So I'm hoping that she's saying, we don't have to do the Marvel approach where we're releasing 3 movies a year or something. We could actually take the time, like what Lucas did. It wasn't just the technology. I mean, granted, yeah, it took him like 3 years to make each of the films because, it's just how long it took. But he also was able to let this stuff live and breathe. And so I think that part was really cool, too. But...
yeah. I definitely agree with that part.
Now, the other thing that was nice is they actually put up a graphic, because they talked about the different eras they were going to do, and they actually put up a graphic that talked about the Old Republic, the High Republic, the Fall of the Jedi, which would be more like the prequel era. Then you had the Rise of the Empire, which kind of is that in-between period. And then you had the Age of Rebellion, which is the original trilogy. The New Republic, which is basically like where the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and that sits. And then, of course, you have Rise of the First Order. So she put up a graphic that was talking about that. And it seems like they're going to broaden these timelines. Now, obviously, they're not going to do it all at once, but it was encouraging to see that, hey, for once, it seemed like maybe Kathleen Kennedy opened one of their own books and started reading them. Remember when she actually made that comment about, well, it's not like we could draw upon material or whatever, and Star Wars fans are like, did she really just say that?
Yeah, right. Like, ma'am.
You know, it's not
Have
like
you-
Harry Potter. You're right, it's not like Harry Potter. You don't have 7 books. You've got like 200.
Exactly.
I mean, that was just mind-blowing. Well, it seems now like that whole thing has been reversed, right? Like maybe she's come to realize, like, hey, you know, we actually have a franchise here. Maybe I should, well, I don't know, study it a little bit before going off and approving things or whatever. So that really made me happy. You know, and then of course Ahsoka gets released. And
Yes.
what was the date on that? It's in August. I know that.
August. There's no date yet.
No
It just
date
said
yet?
August.
Okay. And then, of course, you know, again, Filoni basically said, look, if you guys are ready for a season 2, I'll give you guys a season 2. And, I mean, they interviewed some of the characters there. We found out that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is going to be playing Hera. You know, there's a lot of really interesting things. You know, we got that really cool trailer, of course,
Yes.
which, you know, at some point, I suppose we should do a reaction. We should probably do like because so many trailers have been released now, almost like a trailer reaction show where we just react to a bunch of these new trailers and everything.
Right. Which even they have a trailer for your favorite show, Visions.
You know, I was going to bring that up to you today. I watched it just before we came on the
Did
air.
you?
Yes. And I was like, whoa, now this season looks pretty intense, man. Like the trailer to that, especially that opening scene. Wow.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, so
Yeah,
because you know how I am about Visions, so
I know, but I mean, I'm telling you though, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be certain
sure. There's gonna
chapters,
be those
episodes or whatever,
where
they're
it's-
like,
oh,
eh, you know. But I
Right.
mean, overall though, the trailer made it look like, first of all, I can tell you a couple of things that I got from the trailer. One, there's one episode in particular, like I said, they kind of open with it, the trailer with it, and they reference it, because you could tell by the animation, right?
Mhm.
And that's animated. I mean, it looks a lot like a Clone Wars episode. It looks like an anime version of a Clone Wars episode. It's the same type of animation. It's that 3D,
Gotcha.
really cool animation. Then, of course, they have a bunch of stuff that's more the anime style stuff. One or two clips in there look like it could be a little bit more resistance-ish, you know, kind of for kids. But one thing that they all have in common, because they showed a gang of stuff in there, is that it feels a lot more like it takes place in the Star Wars universe. Like it actually feels like Star Wars. I think it's actually a lot what, you know, season 1 should have been, where it's just an anime version of Star Wars, right? I mean, that's what they should have done. Oh, what else they got? Oh yeah, how you know, the Ahsoka. They had a bunch of Ahsoka stuff.
Yeah. Well, one other thing is the Bad Batch.
Well, I'm getting to that. I'm just
Oh,
going
okay.
down this list. By the way, I should probably always like to credit where credit is due. IGN.com. You know, because there's so much that happened, and I watched a bunch of the stuff on YouTube. You know, there was a really cool interview, you know, with, of course, Ian McDiarmid. And
Oh yeah.
but then there was that one that we saw, and after you left,
Mm-hmm.
we were watching it together, and then you left. I don't know, man. I think somebody should check on Billy D or something. I think he's He's got some sort of, because it was the most awkward interview ever. And then there was
well,
one,
we were joking about it. I think it's like, yeah, man, I don't think he wants to be here, man. He's just kind of
well,
like,
I think he's got some like issue, like brain issue or something. I don't know, because he's. I remember he was like being interviewed in another thing or something, and it was awkward. It was, and especially like after you left, even the rest of that interview, it got worse. It got way worse, actually. Way worse, to the point where Ian McDermott and Anthony Daniels were just kind of like, you know, he would say something, and then the other guys would start talking. He would just blurt out something else. You know, I'm just like, okay.
Well, the man isn't close to 90.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yep. So Andor Season 2 is coming.
Yes, sir.
And they're talking about possibly August 2024 on that one.
Ooh, that and Ahsoka?
Well,
wow.
Ahsoka's 2023.
Oh, 2024. You
Yeah.
said 2024. Okay, never mind. I was about to say, like...
Yeah, no.
I'm about to say, man, there.
That would be kind
You're
of a
swinging for
marketing
the
mistake.
fences.
Yeah. Right. We will own
geez.
August.
Right.
Yeah. No, is which, you know, but you have to figure too, because a lot of fans were disappointed in a way, but I'm like, look, they had to take a break, and, you know, it's not like you can actually shoot those things in a month or something.
Yeah.
They're not using the volume here, guys. You know, Andor is actually shot in real locations.
It's almost like a movie, basically.
Pretty much.
And it's like all the episodes that they have, because they have a lot of episodes.
That too, yes. Yeah, that's right. Was it 12? Yeah, it was 12. Right, because they did like every 3 episodes or something was its own story arc, which that's something I really hope that they continue. The Acolyte.
And those episodes a little bit longer too.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. The Acolyte, they gave us a trailer. I think they officially released that trailer finally. I have not seen the official trailer. I mean, you and I saw the leaked one that was on YouTube.
The leaked one.
That they showed at Celebration, but they have since released an official one. And they're basically describing it as Frozen meets Kill Bill, which is a very intriguing description of this thing. I'm not entirely sure exactly you know, how they didn't do it, but I'll tell you one of the things that actually fascinates me about it. Even though there were a lot of really cool scenes in the trailer, at least the leaked one that we saw, I'm intrigued by the fact that it's sort of at the end of the High Republic and the very beginnings of the prequel era. It's the setting that actually fascinates me the most about this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, because I was double checking. Like, so yes, they do have the official trailer up, and it looks, so far what I'm gonna see, it looks really cool. Yeah, I mean, just the time period is really phenomenal, because you're right between the High Republic and the prequel trilogy. So it's kind of like maybe right at the end of the High Republic, right before Phantom Menace begins. And I think that's a weird space, because we know Palpatine is around at that point in time, and you know, so is there going to be any? I don't want to say crossover, but are we going to get any?
Well, it depends.
Insight into him, you know.
Are we sure?
At that time,
I mean, does it actually say? Like, how many years before? I thought it was like 50 years before Phantom Menace or something. I know it's right at the end of the High Republic era. That much they've said. It's a little fuzzy to me when exactly they're setting this thing. I can almost never really remember. But you know, it's funny because you remember when we were watching it and you said, wow, this kind of reminds me of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
They brought that up. They brought up that they were influenced by that. So kudos, because apparently that influence is definitely showing through on that.
Yeah, oh yeah. Because I'm looking at them like, dude, this is
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because again, the leaked trailer that they gave us was, I mean, it was good quality. I don't think it was a whole thing though. That's the only thing. Another thing that actually got its first trailer was Skeleton Crew. And I have to say, after seeing it, I'm more intrigued by it now than I was. Remember, that was one of those ones, I think it was described as like Star Wars meets Stand By Me or something. It was almost like a coming of age, kind of like how Spielberg's Super 8 movie was, or maybe like Stranger Things meets Star Wars or something. Now that did kind of hook me because I love Stranger Things. So I was like, okay, this could actually work in the Star Wars universe. And again, it's another one of those genre things, right? But I was still like, well, we don't really know much about it. So I don't know about you, but I was kind of into it, actually.
Yeah, I think I have to see that trailer as well. Like once I kind of see it, I probably can form more of a better opinion of Skeleton Crew. I mean, it sounds interesting, but whether it's needed or not, I think that's where I'm at with certain things. It's like some things, are they necessarily just like, all right, just telling stories in that time frame, or is it something that's really a needed series?
Now, that's an interesting thing because there's a couple of ways that I could agree or disagree strongly.
Okay.
Either way, by the way. See, when we were talking about the whole franchise thing and all that, you can, like Solo, right? We didn't really need that. But when it comes to just telling general stories, I mean, on one hand, I could see maybe where that line of thinking would go. Like, okay, there's a lot of interesting things that you could be talking about in Star Wars. Do we really need this? See, that's where I could strongly agree, because there's like, okay, you guys, here's the shopping list of stories we really basically need to see here in this thing. And then if you wanted to start talking about the minor stuff and spawn off of that, that would be cool. But that's why I keep going back and forth. You know what I mean? It's like, on one hand, it's like, well, I mean...
Okay, well, let's take Solo, for example. Now, granted, you can say you don't need it, but I mean, at least it's a story that you can care about. You see what I'm saying? Like, okay, Han, how did Han, what was his life like? He's a beloved character. How did he meet Chewie? How did he get the Falcon? How did he know Lando? I mean, like, you have a lot of these things where you can fill in the gaps. Was it necessarily needed? Maybe that's not the best term, but I can say it's more like, okay, we care about it though. But you're just talking about, and I think people want to see either stories that advance or expound upon what we already know, like Andor, for example. Like, okay, did we need Andor? Not necessarily, but Andor does fill in things in a space that we care about, though. See what I'm saying? So that I think that's relevant. Maybe that's the word I should have maybe used, more relevant, instead of needed. But it's gotten to Crew, like, okay, to come in the age of some kids, that's kind of what's going on with them in the other part of the galaxy. It could be cool, but it's like, okay, well, are we really, like, what's their purpose? Are they trying to become Jedi? Are they trying to, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, if they're just some bunch of kids, it's just like kind of just, man, the Empire sucks, and that's just kind of it.
Well, but again, and this is where I think that a lot of times fans kind of go askew, right? It's like, well, what constitute is necessary? I mean, everybody keeps yelling the same phrases over and over. Hey, we don't really care what it is. Just give us good storytelling. That's what Lucas did. He just gave us a good story, something that was an adventure. Remember, when episode 4 stood by itself, it really was just like one corner. You can only imagine what else was going on in this galaxy. Now, granted, it was probably arguably telling you the most important things that were happening. But at the same time, it was basically a good story. It was probably one of the only movies, if the only movie, that was actually definitive in its beginning, middle, and end. I mean, it could actually stand by itself. And it became something that we didn't even realize that we wanted or needed. And I can think of a lot of films that I went into it. I don't even remember why some of the stuff I saw, because I'm like, I don't know. Like maybe a friend drags me to see a movie or something. Or another one, when the Creed movies came out. Now, at first, I was like, do we really need this? I'd rather see Rocky 7, to be honest. I mean, I thought it was a cool concept, but I didn't really think it was necessary in the Rocky franchise to do this. And now we're 3 films deep into it, and I absolutely love each one of them. Because, number one, it furthers the Rocky franchise, but then it also goes off in its own direction. And see, this is where I think that a lot of Star Wars fans go wrong. On one hand, they keep yapping that they just want good stories. All we want is good stories. Well, not every good story has to fit, before. And the point I was going to make about the episode 4 thing was, before there was the Skywalker franchise, it's just a movie. And I think that we've gotten because the franchise is so old, I think we're locked in a lot of ways.
Well, to that point, you're correct. And that's where I was going with it. It's like, what I mean by relevant is it doesn't necessarily have to fill in like, okay, this was going on between Empire and Return of the Jedi, for example. Like, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that as long as it fits within the Star Wars mythos, like there's that people come to Star Wars for certain things, and there's certain parts of it like, okay, yes, Andor breaks away from that. It's more like we always say, it's grounded, it's more rooted in reality, but that deals with the war part. So we get with that. That makes more sense. We knew about the Mandalorians because of Boba Fett, and we've had stories that was expounded upon them as far as the Clone Wars, things like that. So when the Mandalorian show came out, it's like, okay, cool. We get to see more about the Mandalorians and their hope. Like it was relevant, but I just don't want them to just create
like here's a sitcom family. They just happen to be in the Star Wars universe.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, like that's where I'm really
No, I know, but I mean, and I think that a lot of times though, and this is where I think a show like this is good, because in Star Wars, a lot of times we end up dealing more with the macro, right? Like these wide sweeping themes or these, and again, that's what sci-fi fantasy actually is. And
that's what Star Wars is.
What Star Wars is, and you guys just catch our What is Star Wars series on Mondays, and other than today, of course.
Tonight.
And you'll see what we're talking about. Next Monday, we'll do Rise of Skywalker. And then we'll probably, after that, do like maybe one more wrap-up. By the way, speaking of Vision Season 2, it starts May 4th. Coming up. As will the reviews. I don't know how many... Did they actually confirm how many episodes they were doing?
Yeah, they did. It was about the same.
Was it? I think it was like what, 6,
yeah, like
9, 10?
No, 10, like 9 or 10.
I think it was 9. I remember it was longer than what you wanted.
More than one, in other words.
Oh
yes.
yeah. Oh no, the funniest thing was, I think it was by episode 3 during the show. Actually, you were kind of like, "Yeah, man. How many more of these do we have to do?" Wasn't a behind the scenes comment. It wasn't before we went on.
You gotta get it raw and honest on head to head.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why it's called the head to head.
That's right. We do not hold back on this show at all. But I mean, and that's where there's a really cool discussion. And I'm sure as it gets closer to whenever Skeleton Crew is going to be released or something, and we start talking about it, maybe as a subject of its own show, that is a really good point. It's like, well, what really do we want in Star Wars? Like, we do want good stories. We do want something that's fun, adventure, captures the spirit of Lucas's movies. But what is not appropriate? What, like I said, do we really want to see, the Cosby Show and Star Wars universe? I mean, that's the kind of thing. It's like there are some stories maybe that, hey, why don't you just make a movie about that and not put it in the Star Wars universe and waste what could have been developing something else?
Yeah, because I could see them like, oh, let's do a story about the Ewoks. So like, who? Okay.
Well, they did.
Like, don't give me.
And
No,
it was
like a whole series or something.
It was
like a
the Ewok Adventures.
Oh
yeah.
I forgot about those.
Not only was there 2 movies, but there was an entire TV series on it. It was actually the first live-action Star Wars series back in the 80s. Yeah.
Yes, that's why I don't remember. Okay.
Absolutely. Not a single character to be... It was just purely based on the Ewoks and the Ewok culture. It was a...
See, and that's what I'm saying. That's why no one knows about it, because that's what I'm saying. Like, no one cares. No one wants to see that. I mean, you can feature them, sure, but like if you just want to you're not going to use them to carry on. It's like a whole series based off of them, or Jawas or something stupid like that.
Right, like Wicked, a Star Wars story or something.
Yeah, it's like, who cares? Who gives a crap? It's like, don't get me wrong, he's cool, but
here's here's the thing, and I mean, I'm almost 100% with you, maybe 90%, because I'm reserving 10% to say there could be. I'm not saying there is. I'm saying there could be a situation, depending on the story and the execution, where I would actually care about an Ewok movie. There could be, but they would have to do it right.
They gotta do everything right at this point.
Well, yeah, because otherwise it ends up becoming like the holiday special. I mean, you could almost argue that was a Wookiee movie, right? Like Chewbacca's family.
And it's so irrelevant. I mean, irrelevant. Like, we don't care about Life Day like that. I mean,
well, the thing that's funny about it, they even had some of the official characters. This just shows you that these kind of things, just because you have all the ingredients doesn't mean you're going to bake a delicious cake. It's...
Exactly.
And if you guys missed it, we did do a review of the holiday special a couple of Thanksgivings ago. It's on our channel. It's hilarious. You guys definitely want to watch it. We actually watch it, and it's not one of those where we're laughing and you see the thing off screen. We literally have, basically like this view right here, except I always get this wrong. In that box is the holiday special showing as myself, Daryl, and our sometimes co-host Dave Cossey are on there, and it was good. It was really good. So check it out after this if you guys want to see that. Well, going back to something that I think both of us really enjoy, Tales of the Jedi was announced to get a second season.
Love that. Now, that show I loved.
Yeah.
See, that was, to me, once again, super relevant because it filled in a lot of gaps. It filled in information, and it was cool. It was almost like getting the Clone Wars episode in there. I mean, it was... Loved it.
Well, and
I'll take a bunch of those over Visions, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends because to me, and this is where I think my problem would be like, if you're only going to get one every year or something like that, like if they're only going to produce, say, like 3 shows a year, then obviously I would pick something like that over Visions or anything like that. But what I'm hoping for, and it seems to be happening, because... we're coming up on... We had the end of the Bad Batch, which, by the way, we still have to finish reviewing. We left off on, I think, like episode 10 or something. Or maybe 9. But if they actually had, like, okay, we just finished the Bad Batch, we're running through the Mandalorian right now, okay, you could put Visions in May, and it's fine. Because to me, it's not necessarily taking away from any other potential series. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's none of the major players that are working on it. You know, it's not like Filoni's producing it and not doing something like a Tales of the Jedi. You know, and those are the kinds of things. I don't mind seeing different stuff because I love the Star Wars universe. And being that I have been always an avid reader of all the novels, you know, the novels were all over the place as far as where they took place, what characters they featured, everything else. They were all really good stories, and I'm up for that. I'm like, okay, fine. Give me different relevant TV shows. But I am happy that he is doing a second season of this, that he had so much fun doing the first one, that he's like, hey, I'm going to do another one. Now, we don't really know when that's coming out, but we do know it is coming out. And tied into that, Bad Batch, Season 3. Now, this will be the final season, which I think is appropriate. A lot of Filoni shows tend to go 3 or 4 max in the animated world. Well, unless you count the Clone Wars. But that was more of a Lucas Filoni thing. But Rebels went 4 seasons, I think. Or did it go 5? I don't remember. It may have gone 5.
Rebels, I think, went 5.
Yeah, I think it did. But I do like the fact that the Bad Batch is not going to go on ad nauseum. You know, I like the fact that it's going to be a little bit more concise. Because we did have, now again, I haven't seen, and I heard, you know, Crosshair comes out and it's just all kinds of, like, great mayhem and cool storytelling and all that, but there were some episodes of Season 2 of The Bad Batch that were definitely like, all right, not sure we really needed it. Maybe a little bit of filler. Right. You know, it's... I don't know. But, you know, this is really good news, I think, that they did at Celebration, where they said, look, we're going to give you another season of The Bad Batch. And, of course, we have been looking at Star Wars Visions, you know, Volume 2. And so, basically, this is going to include CGI, hand-drawn, and even claymation. So that's going to hit on May 4th, like we said. Although it doesn't tell you how many episodes in this one. Now, here's something that I found interesting. I don't know if you caught this or not. Apparently, the Lando series is still happening. That's what I said. That's what I said. Apparently, you know, Kathleen Kennedy said, I can just tell you it's still happening, and he's very excited about it. I think we're talking about Donald Glover here.
Donald Glover, yeah.
So, I think that that's cool. Another one, Taika Waititi is still working away on his film. Mixed feelings on that. If you guys really want to hear us go in depth about that, we did do an episode about that. I don't know, sometime like probably last fall maybe. But if you guys go back on our channel, you'll see that we did do something on the Taika Waititi thing. The whole, of course, the Jedi Survivor got a final trailer, which that thing looks pretty insane. And everybody was introduced to The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 7, which I believe dropped this past Wednesday, right? Yeah, it did, because this Wednesday is the finale. So, one of the things, I haven't seen it yet. But, well, no, I haven't seen 8 yet. But 7, you guys missed it. This past Friday, it's online. You guys can check it out. Not going to reveal anything about it. But you guys just have to watch our review to find out what we did. I always like doing the cryptic stuff, right? Because sometimes we will actually review like what we talked about in past shows, but I don't really like to do that when it's the real show reviews. To me, that just kind of spoils it. You guys want to know what we thought of Episode 7? Go watch it. But it was teased at Celebration, and so that was worth noting. Because I like the fact that they actually do show you full episodes of shows at these things. I think that that's one of the nice things that they do for the fans, instead of just constant trailers, teases, stuff like that. What else do we got here? It's funny because Ewan McGregor was talking about how he wanted to do an Obi-Wan season 2, but they don't want to do it yet. Rogue Squadron can still be happening. Are you excited for this movie at this point?
I still want to, because the concept of it, I really enjoy. I really want to see it. Do I want Patty Jenkins doing it now? I'm not so sure.
That's exactly.
Therein lies the rub, but
that's my whole thing.
But the concept of it, though, sounds phenomenal.
Well, okay, I'll admit, conceptually, yes.
Let's just get Tom Cruise to do it. Just have him direct it.
Yeah, right. It's like, do we just get something like Top Gun Maverick, for instance?
Right.
But maybe not take 20 years to make it, although it seems like they're on that trajectory, no pun intended, by the way. So yeah, that was pretty much what happened at Star Wars Celebration. I mean, they had a lot of interviews and everything. That's all on YouTube, by the way. That's one of the other things too. I mean, I thought about, putting in a ton of, like what we usually do with some shows. Oh, here's some clips, here's some graphics, but again, a lot of that stuff being on YouTube, and each day was something like 7 hours or whatever. And frankly, we didn't have time to watch every single thing, but we did watch a lot of the key interviews, some key points. All the stuff is on YouTube, so go check it out and leave in the comment section, of course, what your favorite moment from Star Wars Celebration is. I can honestly say that mine was probably seeing the Ahsoka trailer. I think that was probably my favorite moment.
Man, that behind the shot of Thrawn.
Yeah.
Man.
I know. To me, and that's one of the things I'm the most excited about, and that was one of the... Now, I will say this, though. Seeing the leak trailer, and again, I know the real trailer's out, I am a lot more excited. I was always excited about the Acolyte, but the thing is, because we've been talking about it for a long time and we've never seen anything from it, it was always hard to picture, like, what is this thing going to be? What's it going to look like? And now we're starting to get a little insight into that. So that was nice. It was great to see Kathleen Kennedy taking front and center, being interviewed by a bunch of different people. I think Variety did the most, though. Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought Star Wars Celebration this year was good. It wasn't underwhelming. It was either the last one or the one before that. I thought it was a little underwhelming.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably due to COVID too.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's true. This is the first post-pandemic celebration. So, I don't know about you guys, but I am excited about everything that's coming up for the rest of 2023 and as well as 2024. And I'm sure you probably are too.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we didn't get a chance to mention that I will mention right now that's also really cool. This is the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's right.
Actually releasing that back in the theater.
They are.
So,
end of April. Yep.
Yep.
We should
this month.
Definitely pencil that in. I think it's like April 28th or something.
23rd, I believe. I think 28th, 23rd or 28th.
No, one
like
of those. Just check your local showtimes. or do what everybody else does. Google it. You know us with dates and characters, and we don't always get it right. Yeah, names and all that. I'm sure the chat's blowing up right now with like, no, this is when it is. So you guys know the drill. Look, we're
April 28th.
Is it? All right.
Yep.
April 28th. So yeah, go back and listen. If you've never seen Return of the Jedi in a theater before, this is the time to do it. You're definitely missing out. Star Wars is meant to be experienced on the big screen. I don't care if you got, an 80-inch television with a 4K Blu-ray player, Dolby Atmos surround. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's going to be good, but there's nothing like seeing it in a theater with other people too.
Right, with a bunch of fans and
Bunch of fans. Yeah. We always enjoyed the experience every time we get a chance to do it. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see it again and, maybe talk about it on one of our upcoming shows. So hopefully you guys had a good time watching us talk about Celebration. I wish we could have been there. That would have been, my goal is one day for you and I to be able to do this show from Celebration. That would just be so nice to be able to do. And, even better if we could somehow weasel our way to look, I'll even interview some dude that played a Jawa and, or like one of the lesser known Ewoks from Return of the Jedi or something, I mean, I'm not sitting here thinking that I'm going to get Ian McDermott to sit down and talk to us, but, anybody. Who's the puppeteer that worked R5D4? I don't care. Just somebody that we could get on the show to interview, that would be cool. So hopefully with your guys' help and support, maybe we can get to the one in Japan and bring our unique brand of discussion and everything to that audience and the Celebration that year. We've still got a couple years now, winding down from Celebration 2023. Now is the time to look forward to all the content that we're going to get in the rest of 2023 and 2024. And before you know it, we're going to get a film in 2025, and we'll be talking about everything Star Wars Celebration 2 years from now. So join us this Friday when we do episode 8, chapter 20. Oh, man, I'm lost track. 24, I think, of The Mandalorian, season finale. You're not going to want to miss that one. Mm-hmm. So with that, it's time to say goodnight. I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.